Welcome to yet another exciting podcast novel narration brought to you by World Without Walls' Mondo Senzamuri. If you enjoyed 300 Steps to Freedom, you'll certainly be inspired by today's novel Sisterhood Built This Village. Solidarity Broke the Silence, a serialized fiction set in Eldreda, Colonia. I'm Alice, the author and your narrator. In this story, building a village means making intentional friendships that hold. Today, we open far from the beginning, a stage, bright lights, and a voice that once hid in silence. Our protagonist is Aurora Rory Thompson, 35. You'll hear about Kaidari, a community initiative where women gather in local circles to build their villages. Names, places, and organizations are fictional. This is Episode 1, The Stage. The lights blind her first. Aurora Rory Thompson steps into their white-hot bloom, and the roar of the Colonia National Arena in Virella folds into a single living sound. 40,000 breaths gathered into one. The stage feels like a cliff with guardrails made of music stands and mic cables. She takes one more step, and as she has practiced, lets the step finish before she asks it for meaning. Her guitar is tuned by touch, a slight nudge to the third string, a micro turn to the second. The instrument has the old friend smell of wood warmed by hands. Long before she forgave herself, the guitar forgave her, patient as a door left unlatched. She sings the first line like a promise she is finally ready to keep. The vowel opens, honest and unforced. She feels the tug behind her ribs. What used to be fear now translates as lift. The sound tech in black slips out of sight. The conductor tilts a baton. The orchestra inhales as one. Notes arc up into the rafters, catch on metal beams, and drift back as softened echoes. Applause rides the edges of the melody like foam on a tide. From the stage, individual faces fuse into constellations. She notices a string of phone lights like a small Milky Way. A cluster of friends arm in arm, a child wearing ear defenders, wide-eyed and reverent. Somewhere in that galaxy is a woman who once told herself she could live on silence and call it strength. Somewhere is a town called Eldreda, tucked into hills that smell of rain on stone and lemon tea. Somewhere there is a narrow staircase above a cafe and a door that stayed open just long enough. It wasn't always this. There were mornings when the ceiling felt too close and the phone too heavy. Evenings when courage was a rumor. She tried to hold her life together with grit alone and found that grit can't be held. She rationed words until her days tasted like the inside of an envelope. The world asked for performance. She had only pulse. And then Kaidari. She almost scrolled past the invitation, a green tile in a sea of content. Building guard. Become. A weekly circle for women. Upstairs from Miro's cafe. There was a flyer too, thumbtacked into cork with a pushpin the exact colour of eucalyptus leaves. She took a photo, pretending it was for a friend. It was always for her. The first night, the hallway upstairs hummed with kettle steam and nervous laughter. The room was small enough to keep warmth, big enough to keep secrets. 12 chairs formed a horseshoe. In the middle, a bowl weighted, not decorative, sturdy glass slightly scuffed. On the whiteboard, 3 verbs in green marker, the stems thickened where the facilitator pressed a little too hard. Building guard. Become. The ritual was simple. Everyone took a smooth stone from a basket and named the weight they no longer wanted to carry alone. The stones were not confessions, they were acknowledgements, matter turning into matter. The bowl grew heavier, the room grew lighter.
One true sentence, Rory. Nothing fancy. What's true tonight?
I'm tired of being brave alone.
Then don't be.
They did not hand her a new voice. They handed her back the one she had stored away for safekeeping, the one she wrapped in apology and tucked behind rib and routine. She tried it on like taking off tight shoes, slow, surprised, relieved. Back on the stage, the first chorus crests. The choir lifts a harmony above her melody, threads a silver line through the blue of the strings. She hears the drummer lay a heartbeat on the floor tom, steady as certainty. The camera crane sweeps and the arena inhales with her. Somewhere in the mezzanine, someone is crying in the good way, the kind that rinses. Somewhere, someone else closes their eyes so the sound can write directly on their memory. She keeps a promise she once wrote in the Kaidari notebook, ink bleeding slightly through thin paper. When I can, I will sing in public without apologizing for taking up space. She had underlined without apologizing so hard, the pen tore the page. She taped the rip and left it visible. The notebook held a map of small braveries. The day she practiced saying no without offering a footnote. The day she asked for help in the group chat and received 5 thumbs up and 3 soup emojis, plus a doorstep delivery of actual soup. The day she said out loud why silence had seemed safer, and the room didn't flinch. She remembers the second week vividly because she almost didn't come. She had rehearsed excuses, deadlines, a cough, a cousin's birthday. The truth was simpler. She didn't want to show up halfway healed and be mistaken for done. But in Kaidari, nobody asked for finished. They asked for present.
Same rules every time. We build with honesty, we guard with confidentiality, we become by practice. Who needs a chair closer to the door?
A woman raised her hand. Another didn't, and still quietly found her chair nudged closer. That's how the work moved, without spectacle, with precision. It felt like choreography, but the kind where everyone gets to wear soft shoes. The third week, a storm slid over Eldreda. They spoke louder to outsing the rain. Someone read a poem about geese flying in formation. Someone else wrote a new definition of strength on the board. Strength is what makes room, not what takes room. When it was Rory's turn, her throat locked. The facilitator didn't push. The kettle clicked instead. Silence joined the circle and took a seat like a person who was finally ready to learn.
One more sentence?
2, if they're kind.
I thought the stage would fix me. I think the circle steadied me enough to stand on it.
Back in Virella, a second verse leans into the story. The lyrics have been lived, not merely written. She pronounces the consonants like placing stones in a path. She opens the vowels wide enough to walk through them. Her body remembers the voice lessons she quit and the advice she kept. Head voice for shimmer, chest voice for truth, mix to keep from cracking. She used to be afraid of the crack, the little break that betrayed effort. The circle taught her that breaks are bridges when you keep crossing. Between phrases, she thinks of the staircase above Miro's cafe and the second-to-last step where she always hesitated. The step creaked differently, a hinge sound. On nights she arrived late, she would pause there and listen. If the room was laughing, she went in. If it was quiet, she went in softer. Both were welcome. She remembers specific women in flickers, a nurse who spoke in measures and vital signs, who taught the circle to check its own pulse when conversations ran hot, a baker who smelled faintly of cinnamon and told the best true stories in exactly 11 sentences, a retired bus driver who decided at 70 to learn the cello, who came to every meeting with Rosen on her fingers and Wonder in her pocket. Strangers, yes, but only at first. They had a practice called guardrails. It sounded rigid. It was generous. Boundaries, the facilitator said, were not fences to keep love out. They were edges that kept the shape of what mattered. They took turns saying no, and the room practiced receiving no without disappointment disguised as kindness. Forgiveness showed up early and stayed late. By the 4th week, Rory noticed her voice outside the circle changing. When a neighbour asked how she was, she answered with an actual sentence. When a colleague spoke over her in a meeting, she set her palm on the table, and the second sentence arrived right on time. I was still speaking. When she sang alone in her kitchen, the notes didn't hide behind the cabinets. On stage, the bridge arrives like a familiar hill. She shifts her weight, plants both feet, and lets the line climb. The vowel stretches, a silk ribbon thrown toward a balcony and caught gently. She holds it, not by will alone, but by belonging. The choir leans under her like a staircase that refuses to wobble. When she releases the note, the sound doesn't crash, it lands and keeps walking. She laughs into the mic, tiny, surprised, unplanned. The audience answers with warmth, the kind that makes a person believe kindness can be scaled. She swallows gratitude quickly, not to hide it, but to keep from flooding the song. A memory nudges the first time she sang in the Kaidari room. It wasn't a song, not really. The facilitator had asked for one true sentence, and her sentence arrived on a melody she didn't intend. The circle didn't clap. They didn't rush to name it beautiful or brave. They breathed with her a small, synchronized mercy. That was the night she understood that applause is a lovely bonus, but presence is the medicine. Weeks layered into months. The bowl of stones grew until the facilitator brought a second one. They did not empty the first. Weight wasn't something to erase. It was something to redistribute. New women joined. A few left and wrote postcards from new towns, new circles. Once, a disagreement split a meeting down the middle. No one stormed out. They took a 5-minute break and returned with tea and a phrase they learned to use like a bridge: "Try me again, slower." Rory wrote another sentence in her notebook. "I am not a soloist pretending to be an orchestra. I am a voice inside a choir that knows my part." Now, at center stage, she tests the sentence in real time. She listens for the alto on her left and leaves them space. She listens for the violin's bent note ache and chooses a harmony that won't blur it. She becomes porous on purpose, and the sound gets bigger without her getting louder. She didn't know music could do that. She didn't know life could. Somewhere above the lighting rig, a moth chases an impossible moon. Somewhere in the cheap seats, a girl counts the beats between breaths and decides to keep going. Somewhere under the stage, a stagehand knots a cable and thinks of the grandmother who taught him to braid. The world keeps doing its quiet work, so does she. The last verse returns to the beginning, as verses do when they're well built. She sings about a flyer and a staircase and a room where silence learned to sit beside sound without being scared of it. She sings about 3 green verbs and the way practice feels unglamorous until one night it looks like a stadium. She sings more than anything about how a village is not a place you move to. It's a pattern you repeat until it holds. She thinks of the woman she used to be, the one who believed smallness was safety. She bows in that woman's direction, a private gesture behind the public one. The woman bows back, because that's what wholeness does when it notices itself. The final chorus breaks wide. She leans into the word home and lets it ring longer than the chart suggests. The choir grins. The conductor lets her. The drummer marks the landing like a pilot with extra runway. Final chord blooms, arena erupts, applause washes and returns like tide. Spotlights dim to a warm halo. She bows to the orchestra, to the choir, to the crowd, and, just once, to the memory of the Thursday night staircase. She steps to the mic. The encore chant curls and gathers. She could surf it if she wanted. Instead, she takes a breath, the kind you take before telling a truth that matters.
Thank you, Varela. This song is for the women who helped me build a village when I thought I had to do life alone.
The sound lands where it needs to. The chant rises again, affectionate and sure. She could sing one more. She will. But first she wants to anchor the arc, to stitch the glinting now to the quiet then.
People sometimes ask where it started. If you think it started tonight, in this room with all this light, you're hearing the middle. The start was upstairs from a cafe in Eldreda. 12 chairs, a glass bowl, 3 words on a board. A circle that didn't need me to be extraordinary, just present.
She steps slightly back, letting the hush widen around the sentence. There is a particular silence that follows truth. It's not absence, it's attention.
Next time, I'll tell you how I almost didn't climb the staircase. I'll tell you about the green pushpin and the way the second-to-last step made a hinge sound. I'll tell you about the night the circle taught me that courage is not loud, it's repeatable.
She touches the headstock of her guitar like sealing an envelope.
For now, thank you for listening, for lending me your breath while I found mine. If tonight gave you back even one sentence you'd put away for later, take it home. Put it where you can reach it. Bring it to your circle or start one if you need to. Villages don't appear, they're made.
The conductor lifts a hand. The choir leans forward. The encore waits, patient. She hears a single voice from the upper deck. Clear, not shouting, just placing a word in the open. Brava! Rory smiles with her whole face.
Stay with me.
She nods to the orchestra and the next song blooms. But that is another scene, and this is where we leave her, held by sound, held by practice, held by people who learned each other's names and decided to keep them safe. Reflection. When we say village, we mean structures that redistribute weight. Kaidari's 3 verbs are the architecture. Build. Name the supports you need and accept them without apology. Guard. Let boundaries keep the shape of what matters. Become. Practice until your life fits your values at the joints. Tonight we witnessed the middle of Rory's arc. Next time we trace the first step on the staircase and the invitation that almost got away. Episode 2 is the invitation. Subscribe so you don't miss it, and if someone you love has been brave alone, share this with them. An invitation can be a doorway.